Hey, and welcome to another episode of Murders and Mysteries with Masnick. I'm your host, Dr. Kimberly Masnick, and I am here with the always lovable, sweet, nice, adorable, loves everybody, PQ'd.
Kind? You forgot kind?
Oh, yeah.
I'm known for my kindness.
You are known for your kindness. I was trying to think if there was anything... Your magnanimous personality.
I do like magnanimous. It's a good word.
Yeah. So see, I think I've decided that I'm going to start reading the dictionary and learning a new word every day. So last week we did a little hinting. Well, actually we did more than a little hinting. We discussed how we made the choice of our topic for CrimeCon this year.
Yep.
Which was a good thing because as the exact day that episode came out, they announced our first presentation. But you know what? They actually turned around and outed us on who it was.
Yeah, seriously, guys?
Yeah. So
give us at least a couple weeks.
Kevin, we were trying to be secretive for at least one more week.
Yeah,
but
for real.
So I guess I'm not gonna discuss the case today because that was not our plan.
I'm still not telling them the name. If they want to know, they got to go on the CrimeCon website and look it up.
Okay, well then you just shut me up. Which is what's new. But we chose to do mass shootings this year. The reason for that we went through. So please go back and listen to episode from last week, and you'll find out. I wanted to do something a little outside of the box as far as victimology. I don't even want to say that this was a better choice for me. It was in the sense that I could not get too wrapped up with one individual and get too, I don't want to use the word attached, but I didn't want to feel everything that went along with one person. But with a mass shooting, we've had some serious issues with some of the people that we've talked to and this and that. So even choosing that type of victimology and not going into as much gratuitous violence, which we tried not to do, that was rough. That was really rough.
Yeah, I would say it's a different challenge.
Because now I got a whole bunch of people that are in my head.
Yeah.
I had to set a lot of boundaries, like no talking to people after 3:00 and just whatever the boundaries were. I had to set a lot of boundaries.
Yeah. And it seems like because it's mass, the amount of victims to read about is so much more. And there's so many more stories and so many more videos of family members. So I will say it is... I don't know.
It doesn't end.
It doesn't end. Yes.
It doesn't end. The story keeps going.
Yes. And again, not to take away from
any other victims
or the serial killer, ones we've discussed previously, but and it may just be the cases that we were covering at the time, but sometimes it gave me a disconnect because the killings were so long ago.
Right.
So there was almost
we weren't born yet. So
yeah, it was that, and
it didn't get as personal.
Or in my brain, it was just like, it's so weird. I know these are all things I'm telling you guys that my brain does to rationalize things. They're coping mechanisms. Okay, here's the psychology.
The Facebook comments.
The P Cube's psychological insight. All right.
Oh, heaven help me.
This is only for me. This does not apply to any of you guys. Okay. But we've already talked about this in other episodes, like military people, we do dark humor and stuff like that. They're coping mechanisms.
Sure.
It's just, it is what it is. My grumpiness and my eye rolling is a coping mechanism.
Right.
It just is what it is.
You're not really a jerk. It's a coping mechanism.
No, I'm gonna take that one. I'm pretty much a jerk. It's okay.
All right.
But in my brain could go with the serial killer. That was so long ago. Like that can't happen now. Guys, I know it can happen now. We read about it all the time. That's what we do on a day-to-day basis. But while we're doing the podcast, I feel like my brain would like put it in a box,
right,
and say, this is how we're going to be able to do this. It's just that now.
It's like, for me, it was like reading a story or reading a book. So because like, especially the Gerard Schaefer case, which I've been studying one case for 20 years. Yep. And so it's been going for so long, and you've been now on the case for so long, that I don't want to say that it's like it's not real, but it's almost when we revisit it and we start to do work and things like that on it, that it's almost like going back to a book and picking up where you left off.
Yeah. And we do take breaks from them.
Absolutely.
These cases, they when you read so much into it, and we try to not go into that, like you said, gratuitous violence and really dig into it, but it's so hard to learn about these things and avoid that every single time.
Especially when you know, and I'm not judging the people that excites them. For some people, they like the gratuitous violence. And the reason I don't judge them for that is because I've studied enough psychology to know that triggers endorphins in our brains, which is why everybody rubbernecks when there's a car accident. Violence is something that we are programmed to be excited by or enjoy or interested in. So, but for me, that's not the route we've chosen to go.
I agree. And I will tell you, this case that we chose is more challenging because that violence was so close.
Yeah.
So close to us.
And if you go back and you read the announcement of our standard, and this is what the case we're talking about is going to be our standard presentation, and we're also going to have a VIP presentation,
which we're not telling you guys about.
No, but it is going to be the most amazing. I don't even want to. I don't even want to help. I don't even want to help with the presentation. I want to I want to like be a participant.
Listen, that's fair. Listen, I will not tell you anything about it.
Oh, I'm like,
I'll keep you in the dark. That's a promise.
Oh, it's like I kind of want. It's kind of like playing along.
Yeah.
So, but if you go back and you read the announcement this week, you'll see who we're discussing, who was a mass shooter this week. And then if you do, and please don't do a ton of research, but I'll tell you what, if you do go back in and you Google, you're going to get the peripheral information, but you're going to get a lot of misinformation. And where do P-Cubed and I work? That's all I'm going to say. So P-Cubed and I...
I'm cutting that out.
Why are you cutting that out?
That's cheating.
So we have access to a lot of things and a lot of people that nobody else has or knows or has heard of or seen. And that's going to make us a standard event. In my opinion, that's almost a VIP event because you're going to get... There are people that have never, ever heard, seen... so many things that, well, your name got pulled right out. So I'm just going to say it. You had complete interaction with this mass shooter.
Yeah. I had multiple interactions. Yeah.
So it's going to be something that if you like to listen and hear the stories of survival from the victims, like we did with the Golden State Killer on more than one occasion at CrimeCon, you're going to get it from a different perspective because P-Cubed was not... you know what? I could actually probably argue that you would be a tertiary victim. Okay. I think I did that in class that day, and you were like, I'm not a victim. But by definition, I could argue that you are.
No, you could, and some of the stuff that I've never talked about to anybody except for law enforcement after the incident. There are parts of that story that I've never told anybody else.
Right.
I've told law enforcement, and that's about it. We haven't spoken to the media about it. Nobody has any idea.
No, we had a blackout on that. We weren't allowed to speak about it.
I think with some of those things that I'm going to discuss, you could absolutely make an argument that I was a tertiary victim. Oh. But I hate using that word.
I know you do.
But for a reason, not because I don't want anybody to think I'm a victim because it's a weakness thing. It's because I don't want to take away from the people that actually lost their lives, people that lost their children, their spouses, their friends. To me, I don't want to diminish that word by claiming that I'm
Which is what makes you a victimologist, even though that's not what your specialty is or your degrees are in.
Yeah.
Because you're always thinking of that other person and how they can be affected.
Yeah.
So with that, Let's do a little bit of comparison here. I'm not going to go into, because we are in one of the episodes going to mass shootings. We had our Honor Society induction yesterday.
Yep.
And we had some time to waste. And so I asked them, fine, ask me any questions that you want. School related, not school related, personal, whatever you want to do. And one of the gentlemen asked me, were mass shootings becoming more common? Well, I actually read, and it's one, I'm very picky about the journals and the articles because I want to make sure that I can stand behind what I'm going to say. Well, the Rand Corporation is one of those that I do trust the people that they hire and the things that they print. So they literally just updated a journal article on mass shootings in the United States.
So wait, you didn't just go to Wikipedia and immediately just read off the first 4 sentences?
If my students know, if they even mention the word wiki anything, I'm going to beat them because it is not a legitimate source.
All right.
No, when my brother can log on there and write things about our hometown and it stays, not a legitimate source.
That's funny.
It is funny because he and my nephew then try to see who can outdo the other one. And then eventually somebody deletes it because it's so insane. But no, Rand Corporation did do an updated research article that was done originally by Rosanna Smart and Terry Schell. And like I said, it was literally just updated. Oh, I'm wrong. I thought it was on the 21st. It was on the 15th of this month. But it started with the summary. There is no standard definition for a mass shooting. I mean, yes, the FBI has something, but it depends on who's discussing it. The media has their own opinion. Academics, we use our own measurement. Then you have just people in general. Then you have law enforcement, and then you have federal agencies that and law, legislative, and whatever. So I thought it was really interesting that there is absolutely no standard. So one of the things that some of the things that they use are the number of victims. Okay. But by victims, they can break it down by, are we talking fatalities or are we talking injuries? So the number you can't even rely on the number and call it a mass shooting because there were X amount of people, because did X amount of people get injured? And were they injured because of the event that happened? Perfect example. One of the things I was going to talk about is the 2017. We did have a spike, okay? In 2017, 18, and 19, the shootings did go up. They were still less than 20 per year. I'm going to get a lot of, you're going to be the nice guy because what I'm about to say is about to tick off a lot of people.
All right, I'm about to hide behind the desk.
Yeah, you probably should.
Just in case.
You better take my phone, my computers, everything away from me so I don't check Facebook because people are going to be upset.
Oh, wait, is this one of those things where the lawyer says something really quick in the background where he's like,
yes,
P-Cube does not agree with this comment. Please don't email me about anything.
Yeah, it's something
all right,
like
just
that.
Checking.
The thing is that mass shootings are rare. They're actually rare. I already see your face.
Do not send me a Facebook message about this. I have no comment.
I was shocked.
Yeah,
because we hear about them, and that's what we talked about yesterday, is that do I think they're becoming more prevalent? Well, they did. For 3 years, they did go up. But we still, and this is where it's going to sound like I'm being so bad, we still had less than 20 per year. But then they're going back down. But the reason they consider them rare is because, like, these authors of this research, and I agree with them, there are so few that happen per year that it's very hard to study them and come up with patterns in this and that. The reason they're rare is because they may only make up 15% or less of the mass killings per year. So when you look at the statistics, gang violence, drug crimes that go bad, anything like, thing like that. Mass shootings only make up 15% of the mass killings per year.
But they get more media attention than everything else.
Absolutely. And then that also goes into, depending on who the victims are
Okay.
and what the location is, it also depends on how much play and how long it plays.
Yeah. And we know that from studying stuff. We know that about things like kidnappings and things that if you fit a very specific profile, you will get all the media attention that you would want in a lifetime. And if you don't check that box, you're going to get a little...
If you're lucky, a
blip.
blurb.
Yeah. And then you're gone. And again, that's something. Now it's funny that you talk about. That's totally going to anger some people.
I know it is, but I wanted to be. That's the one thing I say. I'll be truthful, and so I'm going to put it. But I was shocked.
But you shouldn't be, because if we throw back to way previous episodes when we're talking about serial killers, you have mentioned how the definition has changed over the years.
Correct.
Which makes it look like there are so many more serial killers than there were originally. What did they change the number to the last time to where it was like?
What it is currently, the FBI standard is 2 or more victims, okay, at one time. But it's still 3, but that third victim could be 20 years from now.
Okay.
So, perfect example. I'll give you a specific one because he is not happy. Trust me, I get an email. I know who it is. I get Gmail all the time from him. Okay, you know the case that I'm studying and P Cubed and I are working on for so long is the one of Gerard Schaefer. He was killed in prison, and he was killed by Vincent Rivera. Vinny went to prison for killing 2 people. But while in prison, he ended up killing Gerard.
There's number 3.
There was number 3.
Under the new definition.
Got it. But you know what? It's not a grandfathered thing. He is labeled a serial killer now. It has changed his entire case. There were things... He still thinks he's got appeals, and he still thinks he's going to get out. We still think we're going to play the game. But now that he's been labeled a serial killer, that totally changes the ball game for him.
So that changes the statistics of serial killers then?
Absolutely. Now you got to go back, and now we have an extra one. So it actually is going to make the number of serial killers go up.
Gotcha.
When you have to go back and look at it from a historical perspective.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, do I know this is going to make people mad? Yes. Why? Because what mass shootings get the most play? But
we are talking from an academic perspective.
Correct.
Which is really where our worlds are.
Yes. And so as an academic, these are statistics that I'm using. It's not my personal opinion. One person is too many for me. Okay. But the thing that was interesting, I still am, that it only being 15% was shocking, but it hits people really hard, and the ones that get the most play are the school shootings.
Well, of course.
Yeah. And when you go back and you look at them, they're not usually the ones that have the highest victim counts, which is interesting. So,
but in our minds, they're the most vulnerable people.
Correct.
So psychologically, that's why we
Parkland is horrible.
That's supposed to be the safe space where your children are supposed to be okay. Do you know that? Not that I ever. Here's today's like one of those P Cube talks about his own thoughts and stuff.
Do I get to do a disclaimer or not?
Yeah. This is a rare interview. That's what we're gonna call it. Parkland. So part of my job is that sometimes I have access to presentations and speakers with law enforcement, federal agencies.
You get to see things that we don't get to see.
Generally, correct. So, and I don't know if we've mentioned in the podcast previously, we may have, but I sat down through the breakdown of Parkland, and it was a breakdown with photographs and CCTV cameras from inside the school. There was a...
On Parkland or on Marjorie Stoneman Douglas?
I'm sorry. It was Marjorie. You're right. I'm sorry. Yes. My brain just... Yes, it was Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. You're right. Parkland still... No, it's the same.
Parkland is the young children.
God, there's way too...
That's the thing. Is that what we get through...
Wait, I got to look it up. All this is throwing me off.
Marjorie Stoneman Douglas was in 2018, just a couple of years ago. And then if you go back...
What's the town that they're in, though?
Oh, you're right.
It's called Parkland.
It's Parkland. That's what makes... Okay, yeah,
that's what's,
right. That's what's throwing it off. Gotcha.
That's what's messing with my head. Okay. All right. We're on the same page.
Okay.
So...
Look at how easy it is for Masnick to mess them up.
Yeah, for real. Well, and it goes back to what we said. It is because of that they're vulnerable in our head.
Correct.
They're students. This is not what they're supposed to be. That's not what they're supposed to be worried about.
No.
That's not what it just, all of that is part of the process. But anyway, you got to see a presentation in the breakdown on Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. But the breakdown was so in depth, and it was from a law enforcement perspective as far as what happened, what could have been done, so it's that sort of breakdown. But I will tell you that I don't remember if it was a couple hours to tell you that it really messed with my head enough that I don't.
I remember you weren't happy about it.
And it's not that I wasn't happy about it. It was very informative and extremely important that's the information we pass on to law enforcement so they know how to respond correctly.
Correct.
So for usefulness for how to teach our future law enforcement officers and stuff, it is fantastic.
Right.
From the perspective of a parent.
Right.
From the perspective of a human being.
Right.
That cares about... students.
Oh my God! Did you just
children
care about something?
Because they're again going back to the vulnerability.
They're a vulnerable population.
They're a vulnerable population. Looking at that from that perspective, I mean, it was horrible. The whole thing is just horrendous.
Right.
And we will look at another case where it's adults, and we can jump into. I don't even know if it's on your list of stuff, but the Vegas.
I did shooting. Pull the Vegas one because that falls into the year of when we started to have this minor spike.
Yep.
So it was in 2017, and we are going to go into one of these episodes where we're going to go into depth on some of these cases because they're different. But I did choose the Vegas one, and Marjorie Stoneman Douglas was used as a teaching tool for you.
Yep.
It also had a major impact because of the vulnerability and the population. But Vegas, actually, there were 17 students that were murdered.
Yep.
At Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. No injuries were listed in this article. There were just 17 fatalities. Yep. But if I go to Vegas, and I get really picky because this annoys me, it says there were 49 victims. That were fatalities. There were not 49. There were 48 victims and one perpetrator.
And one, I'll bleep that out.
You don't have to bleep it out because I'm pretty sure all of the United States and the world will agree with you. But then some people will lump that person in.
Yeah.
I refuse to.
Yeah, I don't care about it.
If you were the person that caused the issue, you're not a victim.
Yeah, I don't care about you.
Okay, you may have had other things that you were a victim of.
Don't care.
But
you're
not counting in this. So Vegas was interesting for me but Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, I don't know, and I ask my students this all the time. There's something different about that mass shooting that I don't know if it's because they were teenagers and they banded together and they said, we're not taking this anymore. We don't want clear backpacks. That's not going to answer. I don't know what it is, but it was almost immediate that legislation started changing. People were listening.
Yep.
And I'm not going to use the words only, but there were 17 victims. Okay. Vegas, I had 48. Did you see any legislative changes happen? No.
There were
We had
things.
some discussions of the bump stocks.
No, I think that actually went through the ATF. I think that did. I think that was along the final straw for it.
Yeah.
Ironically, I believe that's changing back again.
Right.
So it's not going to have as long lasting of an effect. And again, which is horrible to say when you lost
Correct. 48 people.
almost
yeah.
50 people. But yes, but I think it ties back to what we said. It's that vulnerability factor. Not that these individuals weren't vulnerable because they were going to a concert. That was the least thing in their mind that could
Not
possibly
even a thought.
happen there.
Right.
And if you look at the whole thing, it's terrifying the access that this guy got over this. And the other thing I will add is we didn't hear anything else again. We've never heard anything. Motives, where this guy has been, where
There was like one or two interviews with his brother,
then
and
boom,
then it was gone.
It was gone. The amount of information that has come out of that case since that time seems to just have
It
disappeared, cold-ended. This is not a conspiracy theory.
Correct.
This is just saying people's interest in it waned, so people stopped talking about it.
Right. And it's interesting because it actually has, if you look at it, I have, like I said, there are 48 victims, but then I have 58 that were injured.
Yeah.
But this article broke these people broke that down as well. Out of those 58, 53 of the injuries were a result of other things that were going on. So, he may have shot multiple other people that lived through the event, but it was the people running across the roads that were getting hit by cars. It was the people that were getting trampled on. So the victims, you had victims of multiple types of circumstances that went through that event. So if I look at it that way, I'm looking at well over 100 people at a concert that went through the most horrific night of their life.
Yep. And again, what you mentioned earlier, we're not talking about tertiary victims at this point.
No, we're talking about they were there.
They were there. But so those are the people that are directly affected by him.
Yep.
What about all the other people there that were not hit during that time period?
That laid on top of somebody else or pulled somebody to the side or that said, get in the back of my car and drove them away. Yeah. So now I'm going to guess. This is a complete guess. So don't hold me to it. But I'm going to easily say there are probably 1,000, if not more, that I could put in that victim category easily.
Yeah.
Easily. Because then let's look at the performers that were there that night. You don't think some of them probably hold some form of guilt that, wow, these people came to hear me, and if they hadn't been there to hear me, they wouldn't have been there and they wouldn't have had this experience. So that's human nature. We put ourselves in that position, not that they deserve to put themselves through that, but most people are good people and that's what they do.
Yeah.
They're going to take on some of that responsibility, even though it's not really owned. It's not theirs.
And that one had so much video.
Yes.
So much video from so many angles.
I don't even know how law enforcement looked at that, but but what was really interesting was the cell phone footage that I did watch or listen to, and at some point I just stopped because it's just too much. But it was amazing that the average person was able to pick out where the shots were coming from very quickly. So, and if you've been to Vegas, it's busy, it's noisy, it's loud. There are people and things everywhere.
At all hours.
Yeah. So to be able to find a single shooter wreaking havoc, everything's going crazy around you, and be able to point and say, right there, was amazing. So that was just, but that's two examples that I have. So we have a school shooting that we reacted to in one manner. And then we have a concert, which is still, I don't want to say vulnerable population, like you're saying, but still, it wasn't anything that was expected.
No, they're still vulnerable because they weren't. When I'm using that word, I mean, you think of defenseless.
The people that we protect, that we go out of our way to protect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which led me to one that I did want to mention, because there was one individual that worked, and we have not heard a single thing about this since it happened, at least not nationally, but the El Paso Walmart shooting.
Huh.
So that happened in 2019.
Okay.
Okay. So
Wow.
still even more current. Okay. And I looked up the numbers on that. 22 fatal, 24 injured.
Huh.
Okay. And I'm going to say one hero and the whole thing that was an employee that risked himself.
Yeah.
And if it hadn't been for that risk, there would have been a lot more. Yeah.
You're right.
So, but why do we not hear as much about him or that situation? Because it's a grocery store market kind of concept. Because it's adults. What's the difference?
Because something big happened a week later that took everybody's attention.
Yeah, I really don't know, and I just found it really. I just find it odd how we as a society pick and choose.
Yeah. But we do.
What we decide that we're going to focus on and for how long.
But we do.
Totally a different situation. I have two more that I wanted to mention just because they're completely different, or places where the situation happened. And the one is 2018, and it's the Pittsburgh synagogue.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so now you have a religious facility that went through the same exact mass shooting, and they had 11 fatal, and I think it was 6.
Yeah. So you have a hate crime and
a mass shooting. Yeah. So, and then the last one would be the one that actually, in my opinion, put mass shooters on the radar, which we will dig into this further, that mass shootings have been happening throughout history.
Yeah.
Okay. They're not new. Is Columbine in 1999.
And that is the first big, and I'll put that in air quotes. You can't see them, but the first big one that
made us look.
That made us look at it. So that's why it's going to be interesting in the next couple of weeks when we dig into the history. But when you think back, I'm like, man, that is the first one. I know it's not the first one, but in my brain,
it's the first one.
That's the first one. That's the first big one, and it could be again because it's tied to that vulnerable population.
And the thing is too is that we learned so much more about the perpetrators in that. We actually focused and obsessed for a period of time because we didn't understand. So the easiest thing to do was to go straight to the suspect, the perpetrators, because we knew who they were. But everything down to the colors of the clothes that they were wearing, what they were wearing, the nicknames they used for their little group of two. Yeah. Though the ability they had, I'll tell you, our school president he rattled off information that I would never want to go head to head with this guy on it. I'm not playing Jeopardy with Dr. Moore on anything that happened Columbine, because he literally knows how many bombs didn't go off and what the seconds they were set to, what the seconds were left on, why they didn't go off. And Columbine is, for me, it's a really interesting one. I was out of high school a few years, but to think I'd only been out 10 years. Yeah. And to think that, wow, something like that could actually happen. It was a totally foreign concept that somebody like me could do something like that to somebody else like me for nothing. And this is when bullying also became a focus of our how we treat people and explanation on behavior.
Yep, you're absolutely right.
So that will bring us, let's kind of wrap up a little bit today.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because that bringing up Columbine and being able to go back and look at the history and the things that we now would call red flags.
Yep.
We're going to be able to do with our suspect because we do have.
There were a few red flags there.
We do have information that goes back to very young age.
Yep.
We also have an instructor here aside from you when he got him right out of high school.
Yep.
And before he started to exhibit the things that put him on your radar. And so we kind of get to see the progression of this individual.
Yeah, and I think when he got him, he had learned to hide some of those things. They were still there. Mm-hmm. He had just been able to hide them or learned along the way that I need to put these things away when I'm around specific people.
Correct. And unfortunately, there are things that I would like to talk about, but I like my job. I don't want to go to jail, and I really don't want to be sued. So there are going to be a lot of things that, yes, that he has hidden. And he had good reason to hide them, but I won't be able to go into those details, people. If you want to dig into them yourself, you're more than welcome to do that because they are terrifyingly fascinating because there's some serious red flags.
Yeah, there's huge red flags.
Yeah. If you actually, and it's almost, how can people have such a? I put a mask on all the time. You know, I can't speak in the classroom the same way I do at a wine and crime. I don't speak the same at a crime con, a standard event, the same way I do at a VIP event.
Yeah.
So we all put that mask on, but I'm still pretty true to my nature. You know I'm an emotional person. You know I'm a caring person. You know, sometimes I have a tendency to be really, okay, I just get crazy if things aren't the way I want them to be. But this guy was able to put on a mask that fooled everybody.
Not everybody.
Well, no, you're right. He didn't get by you.
I also have a mask.
Yes.
And my mask is really good.
It is good. It's scary good.
It is fake as all you know what.
Yeah.
But it's a great mask.
So, and if you want to see that mask, you're going to want to, it hasn't been announced yet.
Find me somewhere at CrimeCon and tell me to put it on for a second.
You're going to get to see his mask or a version because you have definitely got more than one depending on who's sitting in front of you.
Yeah, it depends on the scenario or situation. Absolutely.
But let's just say that the VIP event that we're discussing doing will take you into P-Cube's world of his masks.
Yeah.
And breaking down the masks of other people.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's why I just find it absolutely fascinating.
I'm not giving away all my secrets to you.
I know. I ask for just hints every once in a while. I'm like, and you're like, I'm not telling you anything.
Yeah, totally not telling you.
Yes. So do you have anything else you think you want to add today?
No, not for this week. I think this wraps up this week, and I'm excited to talk about next week and go into the history, and because also it means we're getting closer and closer to actually going to Austin. So,
and do you know that the college is actually sending? I need to give CrimeCon a call because they actually want to sponsor and send some students in addition to the ones that have already bought tickets.
Yep.
So each year our numbers keep going up. I think last year, in 2019, I think we had 30 students that came from here.
Yep.
And in 2020, there were supposed to be closer to 60 or 70, but obviously that didn't happen. So we're trying to make up for it now.
For sure.
Yeah. So please make sure you keep up with our weekly episodes because they're going to take you closer and closer to getting to what our presentation is. And you're going to hear some things that, like we always do, give you some information that we can't give you. There's not enough time to give you everything when we're at CrimeCon. So we're gonna take you closer, give you a little bit more. So join us again next week. In the meantime, please go back, listen to our old cases, find out a little bit about us. You can see why everybody is this week. I'm going to be the villain. And
Yeah, you're the bad one this week. I'm the good guy.
I know, it's kind of interesting.
The roles have been reversed.
Yes, I promise I will not. You don't want to write bad things because I said these are rare, because I'll cry if I read them, and then P-Cube yells at me.
I won't cry.
Yeah, he won't cry, but he'll yell at me for reading because I'll respond to them. And
not again.
Yeah. So. But go back and check things out. So, and please rate, subscribe, review, and check us out on Facebook.
See you guys next week.
Bye.